Good evening. Welcome to the School of Visual Arts and welcome to the Design Criticism Department. It's nice to see you here tonight. I'm Alice Twemlow. I'm the chair of the department and I have a couple of messages before we proceed. One is to mention to you all that we are in high application season right now, so if you or someone you know is interested in the program, I recommend a couple of things. Checking out our website, following us on Twitter, emailing us for details, or having a chat with one of us over a drink following this lecture. Also, we have just announced our Summer Intensive, which is a 2-week program that we run here at DCRIT, devoted to design and research. Design writing and research, with a really action-packed kind of schedule of visiting museums, design studios, sites of architectural and infrastructural interest, doing a lot of research in archives, so on. It's pretty crazy and hectic, but very rewarding. So if you're interested in such a thing, please pick up a postcard in the other room and check out the website as well. All right, so this is our spring lecture series, conceived of and built by the first-year students in this program. And we had our first lecture of the series last week by Noah Rosenberg, the founder of Narratively. It was a really interesting introduction to the series, and I think set the tone somewhat in really discussing the nature and medium for storytelling. So if you're interested in that, we video most of the lectures and they're available on our Vimeo site, so do check that out. Now, so the students meet and we work together to come up with a fabulous list of speakers, as you can see, and then they have to go and actually sort of host the night's event, and then help be a respondent and just kickstart the Q&A afterwards. So that's what you're about to see, and I'd like to welcome to the podium one of our first-year students, Katerina Francisca.
Buonasera and welcome to DCRIT. My name is Katerina Francisca and I'm a first-year student here. When I studied interior design in Turin, I became increasingly aware of a disconnect between the materials and the design object we use in our work. The ways in which they were made and the ways in which they use the words energy resources. Now I'm studying design criticism, and I still think about our detachment from the ways our things are made. So it was exciting to discover the work and experiments of Markus Kayser, which used the elemental force of solar power and the raw material of sand to make glass objects. Through doing so, he reconnects us to the process of making. When I had the opportunity to invite a speaker for our spring series, I immediately knew it should be Markus Kayser. Born in Hanover, Germany, Markus has a master's degree in product design from the Royal College of Art and is currently undertaking a research assistantship at the MIT Media Lab. And we are really glad he could visit us tonight from Boston. He's the recipient of many awards. He's one of the 3 winners of the Design Miami Basel's Designer of the Future Award 2012. And the winner of the Arts Foundation Fellowship 2012 in the category of the product design. But Markus is not your typical product designer. As you can see from these pictures, he wears unusual outfits and he doesn't work in an all-white studio. He likes the sun and open air. In his recent projects, his workshop is the desert. With a bit of sand, a 3D printer, and sunlight, he creates weird and beautiful objects. His work is provocative and experimental. It borders on scientific. To me, it is energetically inspiring. Please help me to give a warm welcome to Markus Kayser.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you for this great introduction. I am here, I have to change the presentation first, but I'm here to, right, sure. Yeah, thank you for this invitation. I'm here to really talk a little bit about how my kind of making process, I guess, developed over the years, and how I came to do these projects that you just mentioned, which are very experimental product design projects. So I start off with some projects I did in my BA and between my BA and my master's degree at the Royal College of Art, to show this kind of transition, I guess, where I kind of started to question how to make things. And I think that started on quite early in my process, but at the beginning I think that was just me making stuff. So this project was my final project in my BA, also in London, and it was called Apples and Pears. And it was really, I think it already starts talking about the idea of nature and technology, but in a very different way. It's basically this idea that nature and technology are not so different in the sense that light bulbs, for example, are all unique objects like apples. They all have the same shape, but because the light bulbs are blown glass, they all have an actual uniqueness to them because each bulb is a very different bulb. Not very different, but slightly different, and that's the kind of comparison I made there. And also, of course, the making process of making these objects was for me really important. So these kind of very simple machines I made already then. So kind of just a very simple rotational molding machine. But the process of making then was already important, so I could actually make it rather than having it produced or at least trying to, I guess, investigate how I would make it. Here again, like just these kind of experiments with molding materials. So from these kind of very, again, here's the technology as well. So trying to kind of build my own electronics as well, I think was a next step in kind of making very simple objects. I think I started when I was a child in my father's farm workshop, where I really just made lights. So I think light has been kind of part of my young career, because it always, I think, fascinated me. And here it was the first time I started to connect it with technology and some kind of sensor switches, etc. This was, I show this image because this is my first 3D printed object, which later became important in my work, which is part of the Apple and Pears light. So it's just a very simple clip that would kind of create leaves. So here, the nature is still very much a poetic idea rather than an actual material exploration. So the next project, I think, also has something to do with material exploration, but also in a different way. Here, design is an exercise for repair. So how can we kind of use repair as a design exercise? And we took these kind of these simple tonnet chairs, which are probably the first IKEA chairs, really, mass-produced, and have a kind of very fascinating simplicity or beauty in their simplicity. And our idea really was, as there's still, like, it's probably the most sold furniture in the world. So this idea that there were a lot of these chairs out there in maybe attics, garages, not being used, only because the seat is the only thing that breaks with these chairs. So they can be 100 years old, but the only thing that breaks is the seat. So we had a group of 6 designers who made this kind of little group called WC Frank, which would create new seats. I decided to make a very simple seat, which is basically a mirror. So it's just a kind of slightly curved mirror, with the idea that you would basically not take anything away from this chair, but just kind of lift it up or kind of emphasize the sculptural quality of the chair. So you would almost not see that there's a seat there, and also kind of be reminded that the seat maybe was missing once. Which kind of culminated in an exhibition at the Centre Pompidou, which I think then from there on I kind of started to work more on these solar projects, I guess. So to kind of, this is maybe a harsh cut, but this is kind of back in London, starting at the Royal College of Art, and this is my terrace in London, where it is really hard to get some sunshine, actually, because, you know, in the UK there's not so much sunshine. And here I really just started with a very simple principle. It's just a ball lens, like you would get to read the future. And the idea was really just to roll this ball on a surface, and by controlling this movement, you could maybe create a kind of laser cutter or a sun cutter. The idea was just, it started really with a very simple discarded desktop printer. So here kind of technology starts to come back in terms of control. So nature would do the, I guess would do the main part, the cutting, and technology would kind of guide it. But then I started, because the initial idea definitely is to use technology and use all these kind of laser cutter technology. So you would use stepper motors and electronics to kind of drive it, which is fairly simple these days. But then I found out about these fellas, which are, they are called automatons, and they're basically the first robots, really. They're these kind of, they were built around the 1800s by Swiss and French clockmakers, and they are completely mechanical devices which are able to write poems or draw pictures, and are really, really complex devices. But the fascinating thing is that they have these kind of CAM systems, so they have very simple hard drives in a way. So just shapes which are kind of rotating, and then by this rotation, a roller is kind of taking on the shape and or reading the shape, and that gives the movement. And so from this premise, I really liked the idea that I wouldn't use this kind of new technology, but actually use very almost forgotten technology, which is very fascinating still. And I think this, so I think also it was a real exploration, and I think only it was possible to later build things, or that's why I'm showing this as well. I was only able to build things like the solar Sinter later because I had this exploration in mechanics there. And so I built this device, which is the sun cutter, which is a cam-driven machine. And I will show you a video later of it. So it has just two simple cams which drive a board in the X and the Y axis. And this ball lens is static and cuts basically very simple. So here you see the two cams and the square board in the middle, which would cut or which would move, and through that cut kind of very simple, like thin plywood. And just by calculating these shapes, you could then create these kind of sun shades, basically. So here, that was the last day in Egypt where I went to test this device. And I went, the last day I thought I'd go to the beach, right? And so I asked these fellas to wear them. So now I'll show you the sun cutter, which is, I don't know if there's sound. here we just see solar cells, two which drive two motors, or one motor which drives the cams, which are these round shapes. And then the cams are followed by these two rails, which are the X and Y axis, which move the board here in this direction. The truth is, I did that really for 5 days, going this way, going back. So, so there is this kind of reality to it, and of course, there's a story being told as well. So there are two kind of parts to it. But I think it was very close to the truth. This one. So this is kind of what I guess call the little brother of the solar Sinter, or maybe the father. I'm not quite sure. It's like it's smaller, but at the same time it came prior. So the solar Sinter was kind of, I guess, born in the desert there, because when I was in the desert in Egypt, this was in Egypt near in the Sinai desert, I really had this thought of, well, I'm bringing material to this desert here to cut something. Bring this plywood sheets, which I bought in some shop in London, and bring this material here, and there's so much material there. So if I could only create this kind of translator in between with nothing else, then I would really have something that could be kind of continuous, that would really work quite autonomously, or that in the end, or that was the initial idea, I guess. So what if I could just use sand, or in the Sinai desert was more kind of a stony desert, but obviously the Sahara has lots of sand, lots of sunlight. So from there I kind of really started to just verify this idea, and now I will talk about this Solar Sinter project and how that came about, and how, so here we just see this sun and sand, and then I kind of looked at a map and looked, well, where's a lot of sunshine and where are some deserts. And I mean, in Europe, it would probably be Portugal. In the US, Yuma, with I think something like 4,000 hours of sunshine a year, which is crazy. And then for Europe, like the best place probably is then North Africa. It's fairly close, but also has the Sahara basically, which is huge. And so for the first test, I didn't go to the Sahara. This is snow. I went to Austria just because I was there, and I bought a very, like the first lens and made my first piece of glass, which was 2 centimeters in size, just to verify the idea and have this kind of proof of concept, so people would let me go on with this project. From there, I really started to think about what would this machine be? I mean, how could I don't know, how could I think about a machine, and what perspectives would it create? And so, I guess from an early kind of more mechanical 3D printer to more this kind of rover that would drive through the desert, leaving this kind of coins behind, more as a currency. This idea that sunlight would become currency maybe in the future, like oil is today maybe, and that instead of oil-rich countries we would have sun-rich countries, and that this would be kind of this predecessor of running through the desert and leaving this kind of small coins of sunlight behind, melted into the sand. And also I really loved this idea of an archaeologist finding these things and then kind of researching what they might be. But obviously this was a very would have been a very art-driven approach in terms of a complete kind of, well, I think the product designer in me said in the end, no, I want to do something that actually speaks about industry or speaks more about production rather than speaking about a kind of higher idea of what sunlight might be, or this kind of, I mean, there's this whole spiritual thing as well with sunlight in the past, I mean, in history and so on. So I didn't really want to go down, or didn't want to go down this road. I really then started to think, no, I want to actually make something that shows a potential, a real potential that I see. And so I started with a very simple device. This is at the RCA in the workshop, so that's all I took for my first trip to Morocco. And so this is, again, just the first machine, which is a very, very simple setup, completely mechanical driven. So you, again, to verify the idea and to kind of show that it's possible, because I was just running up the camera. So this I always show because there's this donkey in the image, which has nothing to do with the project, but it happened. So that was really funny in the middle of nowhere, really, and I didn't know who it belonged to. But this is me working with the machine. So here, the machine is I've got this turntable machine which I rotate by hand. I rotate the machine with the sunlight all day, so it's really kind of labor-intensive process where I sit there all day, and my knees hurt at the end of it. But it's very rewarding, as in the end. So this is a sun tracker, for example, very, very simple device. So all I want to show here is really that it also works without technology almost. It's like a very kind of, this is more an artisan process here, I guess. But rewarding in the sense that I would get in the end objects out of it which would actually hold together, and which were very rough and very, I don't know, had this archaeological find kind of aesthetic, I guess, which I thought was really, was rewarding for the first time to create this kind of out of almost nothing. And so from there, really back to the computer and really starting to finalize the idea and really bringing in technology. And the reason for technology, or for kind of high technology to come in, was that I thought again about production and how, I mean, what is the most advanced process that we have at the moment? It's probably 3D printing, which is right at our hands. I mean, anyone can use it right now. Like, we can send off things, files, and have it printed, and it's no problem anymore. So this 3D printing idea, I think, came about because it's really now, and it's really the technology that I think makes dreams possible, because you can almost say you can make anything. And that's a really powerful idea, I think, when you want to portray a potential, to have this machine that almost can do anything. So I chose to do that, and also obviously there's a lot of I think that's also interesting, a lot of online knowledge out there to be able to build something like this, because of course I'm no engineer, no computer scientist, but I think anyone can build something like this if they want to, and that's I think part of our time today. It actually wasn't possible maybe 20 years ago. So I think to have access to all of this knowledge is amazing. So this is again my flat in London, very small, but it became for a long time my kind of workshop. And I expanded at some point. This is the second solar Sinter machine. So I do have a wide studio as well, but not as wide. It's a bit pretty dirty. And so from there we went to the desert in Egypt, so the other side of the Sahara basically, which I wanted to go from the very first idea, because in Siwa or in this region of the Sahara you can actually find desert glass, which is probably made by meteor impact thousands of years ago. And this desert glass it's also called Libyan glass, so it's more in Libya, but it was really difficult to get into Libya. So this is the closest. It's very close to the Libyan border in Egypt. And so this is maybe 4 o'clock in the morning, and this is now probably 10 o'clock, working with the machine, creating this film, which is another big aspect of this particular project, to create the story. Without the film, this whole project wouldn't be visible. You need to kind of portray this, and so as the objects only tell like a very small part of the story, really. So now I'll show you the film that was created, which is really leaning onto the sun cutter film. So whereas the first one, I did film on my own and did everything on my own, this one there were quite a few people involved, as you can see. But mainly in the storytelling and the kind of creation of this film rather than in the making of the machine or anything like that. So I think from this I can just talk about the performative aspect in this kind of film, because I think that's also really important. At first I really wanted to create a machine that would be completely on its own in the desert, doing its thing without any involvement. Mainly due to time issues, I didn't finish any part that would make the feeding kind of possible. So I kind of did the same thing as with the sun cutter and kind of was in the film doing it, which I think actually added in some way, because there was this connection between the machine and the human, and kind of how, like, also this little bit of a utopian kind of world that this film plays with, I guess, which is not mainly the intention, or the intention is definitely to talk about production, but I think it helped to many people to watch it. I think that kind of just this element of a human being there, and that it's not only a machine, but that it's an interaction between a human and machine. So this is the two different ones. One is this is Egypt still, and this is Morocco. And so I think these are kind of objects which were made in Morocco, which was the last, which have a much finer resolution, and kind of showed more potential, I guess. And that was my last trip, so I just did one more to kind of finish that up in a way. And then also some more craft objects, which were much more handmade and still with the machine, but sintered from two sides, and had the technology wasn't involved as much. Here you can see very clearly the difference between, for example, Egypt and Morocco. Like the glass is very, very different just from the sand. So I think what I did here was really this is a machine and man project. But I think there are other ways of looking at this project as well, which is machine and community. I think this one was in Egypt, where this is the camp where we stayed. And this doesn't mean it is already a community project, but I think there's a potential for being a community project where you may not even bring the whole machine, you just bring a lens and you see what you can do with it. And because I think most parts of the machine could be built very simple in different methods on site. And the technology, as I showed before, is not really necessary always. But could also be possible with technology. So I think this is one option. And also to create other processes like solar welding. This is just the same process, but welding metal together, or there could be smelting, or there could be all sorts of different processes. Then machine and manufacturing, I think, is what I talked about all the time, is this idea, how can we produce maybe in the future, and how can we change how we look at production. And I think it's a really old idea, because this is what I found in the magazine Modern Mechanics from 1933. And it's the idea of sun-melted sand for auto roads, but also channels, and like basically Mr. W. Beach had this idea a long time ago. So I think that many people probably had this idea, and it's very much in the translation, in the prototyping, in the making of reality and showing this real potential. I think that kind of makes a big difference to people. And then, of course, dreaming of architecture. A lot of architects were really curious about how how strong this material is and how we can make it stronger. And I think there is real potential to actually create today what W. Beach had thought of a long time ago. We can, I think, do today with very large lenses, and we can actually create walls directly in the desert floor and just print them up in layers and build architecture with this process. I don't see this is not feasible. I see it's completely feasible today. It wasn't feasible in 1933 because we would have built huge glass lenses, which is another big problem. But now we have fairly cheap plastic Fresnel lenses, which you can make in almost any size. And so this is, I think, really, really possible. It's just a matter of doing it, really. And then, of course, building on the moon, which is another thing that came up, which I never thought about, which came up when this video got out, and a lot of people came to me and said, we need to sinter a solar sinter on the moon. So one company in Italy, they sent me some material, some lunar regular simulant and Martian simulant, and so I thought, why not? And so I did some tests on my last trip, and they sent me this material, so I thought, why not? And made these kind of small pieces, which are, the lunar regular simulant is very close to what it actually is on the moon. The Martian apparently is not so close, and I'm not quite sure. But the problem obviously is it's a very different, I mean, it's a completely different atmosphere. I mean, no atmosphere, basically. So it's a very different situation up there. So anyway, the reality of this is that there are people actually working on radiation shelter, for example, for lunar, I don't know, habitats, not habitats, probably like some kind of scientific station. And so I think that's for me, the only realistic kind of use for it, where you can just create very thick walls on top of other structures. And this is another part of it which broke. So it's not very good. It's very, very brittle, and etc. So anyway, I think it's a nice round to finish that, because people really start dreaming about this project, and that's what I like about it. That people send me all these emails about what they think it can do. And I think what's critical here is that I could only really make this really simple object, the bowl. And that's what sparked people's imagination, because when you see something that simple, you can think much further. As if I had made something very complex, then people think that's finished. And I think that's really important or that's what I learned from this project, really, that if you give people simplicity with the process, then they can really dream on top of that. So how much time do we have left? Okay, then I'll finish up. Well, there's always more. So, I don't know. Maybe I just I skip one project and I do just a few words about what I'm doing right now, because then I think that's another project. So here, this is my work at the Mediated Matter Group, led by Neri Oxman at the MIT Media Lab. And so here I'm working with these fellas, which are silkworms. And we're really excited at the moment, because we are trying to really do many things with the silkworms. We have a whole kind of lab of silkworms right now, about 200 silkworms, and we let them spin in various different ways. We're trying to control the way that they spin, but also track how they spin it. So we motion track their movements and distribution patterns to then be able to analyze. So here we motion track one. And to be able to analyze the way that they spin the cocoon, but also change their spinning behavior to be able to build other things. So they're not building cocoons, but they're building structures for us. So here again, I think that's really close to this approach, or I feel like I'm coming back to this approach, because I've done some projects in between which were different, which were more on the light side again, like making lights. And here I think it's trying again to combine technology and nature, and that's really where I'm hoping to be, or hope to be able to work on further, which is really trying to connect using nature directly in the process of making, and using technology for that, but just in the way how we can form nature, or how we can implement nature in the process. And often I think technology is the way to do that. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It was mesmerizing, wasn't it? Fantastic. So let's gather over here, and actually you should be holding that. As Katerina pointed out, Markus very kindly travelled down here from Boston to visit us, and actually has to get back on the bus again very soon. So we're going to make this pretty speedy and concise, this Q&A, and make sure he gets time for a glass of wine before he goes. So Katerina, would you like to kick things off?
Okay. So first of all, thank you so much. It was great. So you chose to present your work in form of video performance. And I really appreciate the way that you construct these video clips, and a lot of people did too. Mm-hmm. So in your opinion, what makes it a good narrative? Why they are so...
I think, I think the reality of it, because I think you can do a fictional video, but you can also do a real, like a reality video, but it's not, I think with my videos it's a mix. It's like there's a fiction to it, so I wasn't in the desert all on my own all the time there, but the machine is real, the process is real, and the potential is real. So I kind of tell a story with a kind of realistic approach, but I still write a storyboard. There's still a kind of, it's a movie with reality content, I think.
I mean, clearly humor is important to you as well. You keep.
Oh. Yeah.
Pacing, so.
Totally. I think there's an element that people, I don't know. I mean, I guess I include myself, but sometimes we're scared of science, or we're scared of things that seem hard. But actually, if you make them digestible in a very and I mean, I learn all of this like while I'm doing it. So I'm not a scientist myself, or I'm a designer. I mean, I tap into many different fields, but I think the humor makes it digestible. That's really for a super wide audience, like from children to scientists. Scientists actually write me as well. So I think there's this balance.
Before you go to your next question, I have a quick one to put in there, which is about whether obviously you ended up in the desert because of the amount of sunshine, but I wondered if you also reflected on the nature of the desert as a sort of endpoint, the absence of design as we conceive of it in the Western world, as a kind of the frontier in a way. You had a lot of time out there to reflect.
Yeah.
If that comes into the project.
Yeah, I think it definitely is. I mean, first of all, it's a great scenery because it's as you say, empty. There's like you can really concentrate on like the viewer can concentrate on what they're doing, and I can concentrate on what I'm doing as well. Actually, when I'm there. But I don't see it as a kind of end point at all. I really see it as a starting point. So I think it's more looking at I don't know. I guess we could look at it in terms of population growth. We could look at kind of, okay, where are all the people going to live? I mean, the desert is growing, so I think in the end, people will be more and more. That's one kind of realistic point, I guess. But on the other hand, that's not. I'm not so like. I'm not really trying to give real answers as well. I think I'm more saying this is a real opportunity, and I think whether we say, okay, we build houses in the desert or we do manufacturing in the desert, they're two very different things. We don't need to have many people to do manufacturing in the desert, but if we do houses in the desert, it's a different reality. So it's like and also another reality is there are communities in the desert, so you could also build houses for them who are living there already and build their houses at the moment from clay, which in the once or twice a year rain gets completely destroyed and they build it up again. So it's like this maybe there's an opportunity there as well. So I think there are many different opportunities, and I'm not sure which one is the right one.
Well, that's a much more optimistic view than, I'm just thinking some design critics kind of end up there in moments of passioning or despair, like Rain of Banham or Baudrillard, you know, kind of sort of...
No, I'm positive.
Yeah.
I do have another question. You talk, in a recent interview, you talk about creating platform for dreams, and also tonight you talk about dreams. Like, can you talk about, like, for who are these dreams? Like, are your dreams people dreams? Like, can you talk a little bit more about that?
I think it's just a reflection in a way, I think, from what I get from this project. It's people dreaming, and it's people dreaming about, for example, space explorations, looking at architecture, looking at manufacturing, and I think it's dreaming. What I mean by dreaming is giving them this realistic starting point, and I think that's all it is. It's dreaming is I think exactly what you said before. We're not doom. Like, there's not doom and gloom in this. I think no, we shouldn't think in a way that we shouldn't think of the end of the road. I think we need to see opportunities rather than all the failures that we already have done. It's like I like dreaming for its ability to show potentials, and we can dream and actually create something that might change something as well. And if a lot of people, like now maybe over 1 million people, have seen something like this, and maybe just 10 of them start to actually make something from it, then I'm happy, I think.
Yeah, that sort of relates to your question about audience in a way.
Oh, yeah. Like, I was wondering, like, you create this amazing object, beautiful, but what is your audience? Who do you think is your audience?
Yeah, I think everyone, hopefully. No, I mean it's not in numbers, but in fields. I think it is everyone, because there are really school children or some parents write me like about them showing the videos to their kids, or some scientists ask me about, you know, what is the quality of the material? Have you done any material test? What is the composition of the sand you used? What is the lens? Like, what is more technical questions, but also much more, dreamy questions. Or, you know, have you thought about building this and this? Or do you want to go to this desert? Or, like, I think it's a super wide audience. Like, I didn't expect this as well. Like, I think that there was a... And the audience is, I'm not sure what the audience is. Everyone, I think. Like, in terms of fields, it's everyone.
Do you want to check the last one? No. Okay, let's take some questions from the audience. Yeah, one second. I just want to see if there's a student that has a question first. No?
Do you see yourself as part of the utopian tradition of everyone from Paxton to the Crystal Palace, and there are many Europeans who thought of glass architecture in a very socially utopian way. It seems that you also seem to come to that path.
Yeah, no, I don't think so. Like, I'm not intentionally, at least. I think, I think that the utopian, or what I mean by utopian, is just that it has this utopian feel. Like, these videos sometimes have this feel of one-man show in the desert. I mean, that is kind of utopian, but it's a bit Mad Max, a bit of kind of like this like, there's a lot of kind of maybe references in there, but it's not intentional. Like, oh, this I want to be utopian. I think it's not utopian. That's I think the crucial bit about it, that it's different. Like, there's a reality to it.
Well, utopia doesn't necessarily rule out.
No. But the idea is very, very big and involves everyone but almost to participate, maybe. And that's not or like a. And I'm not. I don't spell out an idea to say this is my utopia. I think I spell out possibilities which other people may make their utopia. I don't know.
So now you're at MIT, and there's obviously there's probably got maybe people from NASA asking you those things. You talked a little bit about manufacturing, and I wonder with this project, with the Solar Sinter project, or with any other projects, is there anything that you would like say? Okay, if we're going to take this large scale, these things cannot be changed, or these things must be this way.
It's very difficult because it's a good question, because I think there's like when you get approached by a company, for example, and they say, well, we want to spend that and that money, we want to make some patents with it, we want to have this set up in Florida or wherever, then of course it's a very different story suddenly. But at the same time, I wouldn't rule out anything, because I think that in the end, I think it is for industry. So if any company or any company would be willing to actually go that way, in whatever they would, like if they want to use additives to kind of change it to be better material, like maybe not better, but stronger material, for example, then of course you change something. Like this is a very pure approach. I'm just using sunlight and sand, just what's there, nothing else. So but it's honest, but also it's not very practical. So I think for industry to use it, it would have to be changed, and that would be good. I think that's in a way also what it's for. It's one part of it. Like and also they are kind of welcome to use it. I don't claim any patents on it or anything. So.
This is fascinating presentation. What is it within yourself as a designer, as an inventor, that let you set aside, in other words, the existing technologies that exist out there now relatively cheaply, to do something so labor intense? You weren't sort of saving either time or money to not use an inexpensive laser cutter or a MakerBot, a 3D printer, and I can see the potential of finding something new. It's really wonderful to me. And the lazier part of me would say, oh God, go to Egypt to cut out this piece of plywood where there exists something that's within our reach.
Yeah, I think the Sun Cutter and the Solar Sinter are also very different projects. The Sun Cutter is a very playful project, I think, that led me to do the Solar Sinter in the end. But it's a very playful project in the sense that, of course, we don't really like it's not a new technology. Like it's not really applicable, maybe, or we can do very simple artifacts with it, and you could think of it as well. In a way, you can make that anywhere in the world without any electricity, without anything. So there is this small potential also for use, but I think it's small, the realistic potential there. I mean, and for me it was more about really just the concept of what if we would use sunlight to make things. So why we using a lot of, I mean, a laser cutter would use maybe, I don't know, half the room of solar panels to be able to run the laser to produce something, and this one uses like a tiny solar panel.
I want to say they're truly inspired.
Yeah.
Made me want to go out
and
buy the crystal ball.
the Solar Sinter I think is very different, because that one is actually there you see kind of what you say MakerBot, kind of a MakerBot enlarged, right? It's like a simple 3D printer. Uses actually the same kind of software that the MakerBot uses. But you also see a completely different approach to what material used and what energy is used, and that is important. That's the crux of it, I guess. Or that's how, I mean, that makes us think about future applications of sunlight and of material that is there in abundance, which is rare today. I think that abundance is the big question, or the answer. I don't know.
By sort of telling us a little bit about what attracted you to the Department of Mediated Matter at MIT, and why that was the next kind of logical step for you in this sort of evolution you've described.
Mm-hmm. It wasn't really a logical step at all, actually. No, I was approached by Neri Oxman after like a couple of weeks this video was out, and then we talked over some weeks and months, and it seemed then that it was a good move, because I wanted to learn more about technology. My scientific knowledge is kind of lacking behind my designer knowledge or my art knowledge, and I think there's a I really wanted to be exposed to this environment of high science, you maybe call it, I don't know. And now I'm there, and I think it's very interesting. Like I'm learning a lot every day, but I'm also seeing that, of course, I'm still working as a designer. And so I think there's the media lab is a very good place for that, because you can really tap into all sorts of fields. You can do any course at MIT that you want, and at Harvard. And there's a huge variety of things. Like not enough time basically to do all of it. And the work is really interesting. I think the Mediated Matter Group has a very strong focus in future fabrication technologies and how we use them looking at nature. And I think that's kind of where I am as well. And I just want to, I think this one element that I'm bringing as well is to include nature directly in the process, and not only mimicking, but also including it directly in the process.
Well, I'm looking forward to the silkworm video.
So, how do you research your topic? Like, how do you start to your concept? Like, what's your research method?
It's a good question, because I think every project is very different. But at the beginning, there's a lot of, for me, there's always a lot of playing. I mean, in the end, I played around with this glass ball and looked at what it can do, because it's a great object. And I think that's, for example, how the Suncutter project started. And of course, then you start researching, I mean, on the one hand, what's out there already. Like, if you have an idea, of course, you need to verify that how many other people have done it already. And but I think also there are many different ways. Like, internet is an amazing resource nowadays, just for technical questions. And so from a YouTube video to a paper, I think it's not very different sometimes. Like, you can either watch, it's nowadays I think it's both. Like, sometimes I read a paper for structural qualities of silkworm fibers, and on the next step I just put a silkworm on a string and see what it does. So it's like a sometimes it's just doing and learning, I think.
Well, we should probably take this conversation next door right now, because Markus says it's best to catch.
Sorry
Back
about
to
that.
work. What is silkworms doing right now? But before we have to go, please join us on